A few weeks ago, I picked up a book. It's called Level Up by Rob Dial. It's how to get focused, stop procrastinating, and upgrade your life. It's an okay book. It ran a little long and repetitive and salesy. Well, it felt long because it was repetitive and salesy at times. But there were two really cool ideas in there that I think were definitely worth the price of admission. And I want to talk about one of those today. I'm going to talk about the other one tomorrow. Horn going off. You don't notice so many of the outside sounds until you actually get out here and sit outside. I mean, it's summertime. I don't normally just sit outside in the summer. But anyway, so one of those ideas was about identity. And what he means by identity is the story that you tell yourself. He talks about this triangle of something. I forget what he called the triangle. Triangle of personality, or I don't know. But it's a triangle. There's three elements. Your identity drives your actions, and your actions produce results, and those results inform your identity. And it's the cyclical kind of thing. Let me read this for you real quick. Identity drives our actions. If you believe you are a person who is lazy and gives up easily, you'll be lazy and give up. But if you believe that you're a person who takes action and works towards your goals and dreams without ever quitting, that's exactly what you will do. Your identity influences your actions, which determines your results, which feed back into your identity. When your identity isn't lined up with the future you want to create, you will never create that future. And I thought about what's one thing that I would want to change about myself. I'm actively working towards changing it. Well, one is, as you can kind of tell on camera, probably, I am, about 60 pounds overweight. I topped out at about 310. So I'm actually down from that top level 45 pounds. I'm at 265-ish, within a few pounds of that. I've fought with being overweight pretty much ever since I left college. And every time I would try to address it, I would address the actions. Like, what do I do? What do I eat? How do I exercise? What do I not eat? And I would get some results along the way, but they never stuck. I got to thinking about, it's like, is there something that I'm telling myself? I want to say at one point he referred to them as limiting self-beliefs. And I think about it with relation to weight. Here's an easier example. It's like I've said for years and years and years and years, like pretty much all of my adult life, I'm not a morning person. That's an identity statement. I am something. In this case, not something. I am not a morning person. What if I wanted to get up early in the morning on a regular basis? Well, in the past, what I would do is I would start with my actions. It's like I'd start setting an alarm earlier and getting up earlier. And I would be groggy and miserable for several days or a couple of weeks until I'm just like, this sucks and I'm not doing it anymore because I am not a morning person. And the point that he makes in this book is if you start with the idea that I am a morning person and then do the things that a morning person would do, that makes a difference. Or with respect to my weight, if I think about I am an overweight person, I don't know that I've ever really said that. Actually, I think I just did. I think I said earlier, I am about 60 pounds. It's really difficult sometimes to separate out true identity statements from just statements of fact. Like, I am 6'1". I am 200 and I think I was 269 this morning. But am I believing that I am an overweight person? I certainly believe I'm not a morning person. And his premise in this book is that until you change your identity statements, until you change the story that you're telling yourself, you're not going to be able to change your actions. At least not long-term, not permanently. And that has certainly been true in my life. I mean, I've tried several times to change a couple of things about myself that I really just don't like. Now, I've tried to change other things, and I have liked. Or, let me rephrase that. I've tried to change other things that I wanted to change and had good results there. Why would I change something that I like? I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced this is true, but I haven't really given it a fair shake yet. So I'm going to, and it's not just him making this claim either. There's this whole field of neurological study called neuroplasticity. And apparently what we used to believe about the brain, I don't know, 100 years ago or something like that, was that your brain developed up to a point, say at 25, 30 years old. And then whatever pathways were wired, whatever neurons were there or weren't there, your habits, your identity, your sense of self, whatever that was locked in. And that's who you were going to be for the rest of your life. And we've since discovered through theorizing and experimentation and empirical data that that's just not true. You go and search for rewire your brain and you'll see a lot of stuff. Some of it I'm not entirely convinced of either. But I know there's something to that on some level. Not too long ago, it's probably about 6 years ago, I wanted to learn how to play drums. And if you've ever tried to teach yourself to play drums, or if you ever learned to play drums from scratch, if you can remember that, you'll identify with this, is that there was a moment. All I was trying to do was a basic 4/4 beat. It's like boom, boom, boom. Just that basic 4/4 beat. Oh my goodness, it was so hard. I literally felt my brain breaking. It's like my trying to make my hand, because you're trying to do 4 different things with all 4 of your limbs, all independently, but in concert with one another. And it is so hard until it's not. I distinctly remember the moment being in my garage, practicing on the kit, a little electronic kit with little rubber heads, where it just clicked. It's like I could feel the new pathways growing in my brain. And I played along with my favorite music, not great, but I was able to do it for like an hour and a half straight. And even though I only played for about a year and a half, and then I've since atrophied quite a bit. Like I tried to play not too long ago, I'm back to a beginner again. I would not necessarily say I can play drums, but I have not regressed back to that point where I cannot actually play a 4/4 beat, because those pathways were established. I rewired my brain in order to be able to do that. So I know on some level, changing your brain physiology, changing the pathways that are there through the force of your own will or intention is possible, because I've done it. But I did it through action. And what this guy is saying, and potentially what the neuroplasticity folks are saying, is that it actually starts a level back from that, is that it starts from the story. It starts from those identity statements. It sounds like a bunch of nonsense when I first think about it. But I'm intrigued so much about the possibility of being able to make changes in my life that I've not been able to make up until this point. I'm almost 50 years old. And there are things in my life that I want to change that up until this point I have not been able to change long term. And this is something new to try. I want to leave you guys with a story from his book. He has a bunch of stories in this chapter about how what you believe about yourself, that story that you tell yourself, can change who you are on a fundamental level. But this, I think, is probably my favorite one. They don't name the kid, but there's a story about a kid who was failing junior high. He was a troublemaker. He hung out with the wrong crowd. He didn't get good grades. And his academic record was such a mess that he wasn't even going to try to take college entrance exams. And his mom convinced him otherwise. And when he went to take the SAT, he got a 1480 on the SAT, which is pretty dang close to perfect score. 1600 is a perfect score. And his mom actually thought he cheated. He's like, I didn't cheat, Mom, I promise. But what that did for him is that he had an external influence telling him, you are a smart person. And he internalized that identity statement. His senior year of high school, he got his act together. He started hanging out with better crowd. He started studying. He got up early. He went to school early. He did his homework. He put in the work because he believed it was possible. He went off to community college because the rest of his academics were terrible, but he eventually was able to transfer to an Ivy League school. And then he became CEO of an international magazine. Now, if the story stopped there, that would be a super cool story. But what's really interesting about this story is it says 12 years later, he got a letter from the college board that said, sorry, we made a mistake with you. You were part of a really small group that we made this mistake with. We basically doubled your score. You didn't get a 1480, you got a 740. 740 as your total score for the SAT is average to below average. I want to say the average is somewhere in the 1,000 range. I don't know. I haven't looked at the numbers recently, so actually, I'm not going to say that at all. I don't know what I'm talking about. He said the reality was that he did terribly on the test, but by the time he found out, it didn't matter. I wrote as a note in the book, he overcame actual limitations because he believed they weren't there. Think about that. I have no reason to doubt the veracity of this story. I mean, I guess I could doubt whether or not it can be broadly applied or whether or not this guy was an anomaly. But the more you look into this, you see story after story after story, and not just anecdotes, but like I said, empirical evidence that what you believe about yourself can both positively and negatively, especially the negative side, impact who you are and the kinds of things that you do, the kind of results that you get, which then feeds back into what you believe about yourself. And so I guess I would leave you guys with this as an encouragement to examine your mind, examine your heart. What do you tell yourself? Do you tell yourself, I am a failure? Do you tell yourself, I'm not worthy of love? Do you tell yourself, I'm poor and I always will be? Or are you trying to change something in your life, but you're not addressing the identity portion? I'm not a morning person. I'm trying to get up early in the morning, but I'm not a morning person. There may be something there to that. Examine your heart. Examine your mind. What do you believe about yourself? And pick one of them. Pick one of them that you would want to change and just try changing it. Tell yourself every day that you are the opposite of what you currently believe yourself to be. I'll see you tomorrow. But where I would always, oh wait, I guess I need to wait for the UPS driver to go by and stop squeaking his brakes. My wife is telling me she's about to leave. She's warning me she's going to make more car noise. Go make the car noise.